Okay, using this data, we're going to make a pivot table and a pivot chart, and the pivot tables chart is what we're really going to be concerned with. And so the first thing I'm going to do is just if you need to move any cells around, like for example, if this is chewing up too much space for you, you can click in between rows and widen them out and save a little bit of space. So that's how you can move cells around. I just wanted to show you that real quick. And what we're going to do now is we're going to sort the data. So I have to filter the data to do that. And I'll show you how to do that. We just click on the cells, the columns that we want to filter in this data. So I want all the columns. So I can do, I can click on column A, and then I'll go clear over to column F, my last column in this data, and do Shift click. And now I have all the columns highlighted. If you wanted just particular columns to do this column pivot table with, you could do click on a particular and then do Control click. So Control click will allow you to select particular ones, whereas, and I'll take those back off, whereas Shift click allows everything in between. So I want all these, so I did Shift click to, up on the columns to get them all highlighted. Now you click on Data up on the top, and you click on Filter, and you'll see these little tabs show up. So let me explain what this data is. This data gives you, the most important thing is over here, your dependent variable is the number of deaths per 100,000 people between the ages of 15 and 60. So you can see, for example, here in Europe in 2010, and Iceland, which is in Europe, the females had an average death rate of 39 females per 100,000 died that year that are between the ages of 15 to 60. That's extremely low. When you look here in 2003 in Zimbabwe, Africa, males had a death rate that year of 728 out of every 100,000 males between the ages of 15 to 60 died. That's a high death rate right there. You can divide that somewhere and get what that death rate is, equals 728, just for practice here, 728 divided by 100,000, and you get 0.007, which is not a whole percent, but it's pretty close to 1%. It's 0.7% of all males between the ages of 15 to 60 died. That's, that's a high percentage. I'll switch that to a percent so you can see that. But wow, there it is, 0.73. Now, if you compare that, I'll just drag this up so it uses the same cells, but I wanted to use these cells. Like, for example, I'll just do equals this 39 divided by the 100,000, and you get 0.04%. So this is 0.73%, almost 1 whole percent. This is, 4 100ths of a percent, a big difference. This number right here, if we wanted to find out, it's 20. Well, almost 20 times bigger, more like 15 to 18 times bigger. But here we'll just divide them. Take this divided by this one, and we get that it would be 18.66 times bigger. This is still formatted as a percent. So format cell as a number. And so anyway, you see it's about 18 times bigger, but that's a humongously higher death rate. So you might be interested in that, for maybe financial reasons in terms of where should aid go. Well, there's something going on here in Zimbabwe that they need some sort of aid, and this was back in 2003. But anyway, we can get all sorts of averages and that sort of thing on this information. And the way to do that is, first, we're going to do that pivot chart. But first of all, you want to make sure your data makes sense. So you might want to sort some stuff. And I'll show you how you can sort to begin with. You can go down here and click Select All. I'm on Year. And then you can pick the years that you want to deal with. Like if I wanted to just deal with 2000 and 2005 or whatever, I can say OK and see we're only looking at those years. You can choose a particular region of the country, of the world then. Like if you just want to look at the Americas, you can. If you just want to look at particular countries, you can. So you can sort this stuff really nice. Now let me take all those sorts off and have everything back on there. So I want all the years, all the countries, and make sure that all the countries, all the regions, and all the genders are showing up. Now a nice thing to do is on your true dependent variable right here, you can sort it, and I'm going to sort this from smallest to largest. And the reason you do that is you make sure that there's no data that doesn't make sense showing up. And you can see of all the places, Luxembourg, Europe, females had the lowest death rate. And we're making sure that there's no like non-numeric data in here or blank cells or numbers that don't make sense in there. If we go largest to smallest, we can see that Haiti in 2010, the males had the highest death rate, and that was at 769. And so we're making sure that nothing's out of the ballpark, nothing should be deleted or cleaned from this data, or blank cells and so on. So all the data looks good. Once you have your data in there, and now we're going to go ahead and do the pivot table. So to do this, we do Insert, and we're going to choose Pivot Chart right here in this area. And we're going to go ahead and choose the bottom one, which gives you the pivot chart and the pivot table. We're mostly concerned with the pivot chart. Say OK. And this is where you make sure that the data is selected right. You see these columns are selected from A to F right here. Okay, and that's what we want. And then I always like to put it on a new worksheet. So say OK. And now we're over in the place, we're on a new worksheet. It says Worksheet 12. And we're in the place where we need to pull down the variables here to make our chart. Now, the first thing you might want to do is know what your dependent variable is. That's like this right here where it says sigma values. That's your Y variable. How high is it going? So that would be your adult mortality rate. So I'm going to pull this one down. Now, I'll tell you right now, that's not the adult mortality rate I should have pulled down. I'm pulling it down to show you that this one won't work. Why won't this one work? The reason is because in here it says the last word in this statement is string. And string means it's treated as a text, not as numbers. So you can't even sort this, you can't do averages on it or anything. And I'll show you that it won't work because I can always go back to this sheet, and if I rank this, I can rank this from highest to lowest or whatever we're looking for. Let's see, I think we actually need to go to this sheet, and because we're on it now, but it can't be ranked because it's text. We need numerical data, but I'll show you that it won't work with that. Now here is your what variable are you looking at on the x-axis. I'm going to do what region of the world, and it's okay for these to be strings because we're not getting averages of we can't get the average of Africa and America, just those words. These are just your categories that we're breaking it into. And right away, just with this graph, we can see that Africa is at this value and Europe's at this value. And it looks like you might be thinking, wow, the death rate of Europe is way higher than Africa. No, it's because this is a count. We're not doing averages. So right here it says count. So this is just how many rows of data we have from Africa, how many rows of data from Europe, and so on. So what we want is averages. So if we change, we click over here and we do count, and click on that, and now you can change it, value field settings. And if you do average and say OK, it doesn't do anything because we're using non-numeric data. So what I'm going to do is throw this one back, and I'm going to get the one that says numeric and bring down. Now I have it. Now it could do sums, counts, averages, standard deviations, and so on. And I don't want to sum. This added them all up. What I want is average. So I click here again and do value field settings and do average. Say OK. And now I have what I'm looking for. For each of the 6 regions, I have their average death rate per 100,000 for people between the ages of 15 to 60. If I just hold the cursor in here, you can see that text thing come up, the text bubble that says that the value is 332 in Africa, in the Americas 157, and it tells you all the way across. Now, you can get way more data than that. Like, for example, you could put something in the filters and stuff in the legend. And there's no set way of doing this. It just depends on what you're looking for. So maybe I might put the person's gender or sex in here as the legend. And now we can get the average death rate for males, females, and both sexes together. So both sexes in blue, females are in orange, and males are in gray. And you can change these by clicking on it if you want to change the color. But you can see that all over the place, males have the highest death rate for, every single continent here that we're dealing with. And the females have the lowest death rate. And again, you can hold your cursor right there and get those values. So that's pretty nice. Now, if you want to filter something, you could filter by maybe year and just look at particular years. So now we can do the pull down thing here. And we can say, oh, well, let's just look at, instead of all the years, let's just look at the most recent year. Like 2016 is the most recent this data has. If I can click, and when I click here, watch the chart automatically update. And I'll say, OK. And the chart updated. And so most things came down if you compare the years. So, and you can choose multiple years. If you want to look at let's go down here, and this would average them together. But if I did, let's say 2015 and 16, let's select multiple years right here, 2015 and 2016, say OK, and now it averaged them together. So probably the 2015 pulled the average up. So now what we can do is we can even go here into the gender or sex of the person, and we can filter that. Like, for example, let me deselect them all and then just choose maybe females. So now we're just looking at females. Or you can switch it, take females off, do males, and watch the graph change when I say male. Watch how high any of these graphs are. Like this one's basically at 100 on Americas for female. When I say male, now it went up to 180 actually right there. Now you could also filter by another variable, maybe the country that you're living in. Let's pull that down to filter, and it will add another filter on the list. And you could now, restrict a lot of different things. Like, for example, if I wanted to just look at, let's say, just Africa, and well, let's select everything, and now click it again, and it selects nothing, and we can select the area we're talking about. So let's say Africa, and what I'm going to do is look at the countries within there. So I'm going to select multiple items, and this is actually going to select them all. So this is all the countries in Africa. Say OK, and that didn't separate it out. So what I need to do to separate it out is switch the country from something that can be filtered by, which is fine if you want to filter it that way, but if you want to see multiple countries, we probably need to change the legend. So we'll move sex out of that area and put country in the legend. And let's see if we can see multiple countries here. So what I had to do here was put the person's gender or sex back up here, and I put country here as the legend. And now when I click on country, I can choose the countries that I want to look at. And I could say select all. I'm only within Africa here. If I say OK, then I can see the death rate for every country within Africa. And you can match it up and hold it over the chart to see which country is doing the worst. And actually you can click here and perhaps even see the country that it's talking about. And we might have to get, there we go, it's Lesotho, Africa, and here it is at 488. And you might be able to also filter then by gender if we wanted to put that down here as an extra filter on the table. So this is your chart. I'll stop it right there, and you can get some great information from pivot tables, pivot charts. So I'll stop there.